Welcome back to DAGryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. In this video, we're going to take another look at the Postwar Lionel 746 Norfolk and Western Northern engine. If you saw part one, you know we've got a little bit of a problem with the engine. It's just really not running forward very well. And while there are right ways and less right ways to fix it, what I've done is get it working with what I have on hand. When it comes down to it, what does the engine really need? It needs axles, bushings, bushings for the motor. Would require quite a bit of work to get it back to perfect performance. But I've never really been concerned about perfect. I'm concerned about getting it off the shelf and onto the layout. And I have to say, it looks good on the layout. So let's take a look at what I did to get it back in working order. All right, well, I'm back here with the 746, and you'll notice that it's all apart. And that's mainly because I just did about a half hour's worth of work and realized I never hit record. You know, some days. Anyway, I might as well just get back into it where I was. The issue that I was having was that this axle was moving too much side to side, the gear inside was moving too much, and it was causing a binding so that it would not go forward. So what steps did I do? Well, obviously I disassembled this whole thing. Then I got my digital caliper. This is just a cheap one from Amazon, so I wouldn't use this for any real precision work. But for this purpose, it's just fine. So what I'm going to do is measure the distance from the outside of each of the front wheels, which is just about 39.6 millimeters. So then I'm going to go and measure the outside of the rears, and they're at 40.5. So obviously these are more spread out than the front ones, but what really matters, at least for running, is the flanges. The fronts are just about 30.8, the rears 31.7. So what I want to do is essentially press these wheels together a little bit. What I'm going to do is center the jaws around the rear axle, trying to keep it as straight as possible, and I'm going to apply some pressure. I don't want to apply too much pressure at once, so I'm just going to apply pressure to it and let it sit for a second, and then back off the pressure, then get my digital caliper again, zero it out, and measure flange to flange. You know, I just thought of something. Trying to measure this spot here is really not that easy. You can place it inside and measure. And we've got 26.9 on the front and 27.8 on the rear. I want to see if I can move that and get it in a little bit more. So I'm going to apply pressure again. Let it sit for a sec and loosen it up. So I'd like to get it just about 27. And honestly, I really don't know if that's going to do what I need it to do. You know, is it going to really keep this from moving? I don't know. There seems to be an awful lot of slop in there. Seems to roll okay. The axle is definitely still moving. The gear is still off. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I feel like it's better. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to once again remind anybody who's watching that I am no sort of professional repairman. I am not trained. I'm just using what I have as far as tools and experience to try to fix stuff and share what I pick up along the way. And if it's right or wrong, I don't know. If it gets an old train off a shelf and onto the layout, then I say it's good. But there are right ways and wrong ways to do things, and this very well might be a very wrong way. But you know what? It's better than nothing. So I've squeezed those together a little bit, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to say I'm done messing with that for now. I think I'm going to put it back together and see if any of it made any difference. Now, if I've totally messed it up, well then I'll just have to go ahead and do the right thing and pull the wheels and replace the bushings and axles. But I'm hoping I don't have to do that. Well, it's definitely moving better in forward, still smoother in reverse. So it probably really does need the axle and the gear done, but I'm not doing that right now. So at this point, I think I'm ready to put it all back together and run it and see how it goes. Not perfect. It might still need a little shim inside. Maybe I should check that out before I put it back together. Okay, motor out of the way. Gear definitely still moves. So I've been trying to think of what I would have that I could get down in there that might stay there and actually act as some sort of spacer without causing too much friction. And I came up with, a thin piece of plastic. A couple people had said the clip that you use to attach the trucks, like to a post-war car, the little C clip, pop it down there over the axle. And that makes sense, and I like that. But I was just looking around for random things, and I thought, oh, look at that. It's a good width. It's got a little clip and everything. So the bread donated this clip. So if I can slice the sides off and then pop this down over the axle, it might just keep itself in place. So I'm just going to try to slice off one side and hopefully not my finger. The overall cavity here is pretty big, but the space by the gear is not. Now that I think about it, I don't think this was my idea. I think somebody mentioned this. Okay, I think I'm getting closer. I wonder if this would actually pop over the axle, because it would have to be able to spread one way or the other, so that's not going to work. In theory, it was a nice idea. I just took off a little bit of it. And I'm just going to keep modifying it until it works. I just took a little bit off the edges there. Because really, I don't really know what the shape of that space is. If it's just round, trying to shove a square clip in there is not going to work. Real precision work here that I'm doing. Okay, well that went down. And once again, I'd like to remind you that I'm really just making this up as I go. I don't know what I'm doing. But knowing what you're doing is overrated. Let's go back to the track and see if that did anything. Okay, perfect. Definitely not. But for a very old toy that's been heavily abused during its lifetime, with love, but it's seen use. Should I replace the axles and the bushings? Sure, that would be the best thing. But you know what? I like to think about what could the average person do in their basement when their train doesn't work properly. And I'd say most of us aren't going to go and start pulling the wheels off and pressing them on new axles and all that. So that's where I'm coming from. I did what I could with what I have here and what I think most people might have in their house. So is it perfect? No. But is it going forward a lot better than it was before? You better believe it. So now I think I'm pretty confident to put it back together and get it to run. Okay, engine's together. Now the shell, I did clean it up, did a semi-decent job with a little bit of WD-40 and a toothbrush and just scrubbed it lightly. I really didn't touch the stripes, but I wanted to clean some of the dust off the shell itself. The smoke unit is not lining up. I think I have to do something about that. Kind of needs to go this way. Maybe that adjusted it, maybe it didn't, somewhat. Oh, there we go. A little bit of pressure, popped it right back in there. Okay, so make sure it's tight, because you do need a good ground. Certainly better than it was. So let's get this tender cleaned up and run this thing. The shell has seen better days. Scratched, nicked, worn, dirty, dusty. One of the steps is broken off. Could be worse. It's not cracked on either side. Give it the old toothbrush treatment. This needs more than a toothbrush. This needs a good scrubbing. So the wheels are dirty, I think, because it really didn't make good contact. Look at that roller. It's like that's shorting or something. And give the wheels a little scrape and see what happens. I actually thought they were going to be a lot dirtier. I'm going to hit the trucks with some contact cleaner. Give that a minute to dry up. Okay, so the wheels are dirty. So even when wheels look more or less clean, they're still filthy. No, I really don't want to, but I'm going to take a look at the motor here. And I'm going to take a shortcut and contact cleaner in there. Wow, I'm getting lazy. Okay, so that's a little cleaned up, and that's about the extent of what I feel like doing right now. A little bell there on the bushing. I mean, this whole tender could use, you know, a complete disassemble. Everything's kind of dirty and a mess, but I don't have time for that right now. So let's just get these wheels ready to go. That's much better. All right, good enough for a couple of laps. Well, I have to say, it might not be perfect, but darn it, it's working so much better than it was. Now, smoke, the light works, it's pulling this very large train of scale cars. I'm quite impressed. It's a little jerky, it's a little off balance, but then again, what old toy isn't? The only thing that I see that really kind of concerns me is all the sparking from the rollers on the tender. So I will have to take another closer look at the tender at some point. But the engine is working, and working well. Now, is it the proper fix? Like I said, doesn't matter to me as long as it's usable. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on DAGryffyn Hobby.